We choose to go to the moon, not because it's easy, but because it's hard. Today, we're racing against Russia to get to this special moon that orbits Arlington National Cemetery. John Fitzgerald Kennedy sent us on this plan to get some of his belongings that were pulled into the moon's gravitational pull. The things we need to get are his childhood picture books, his presidential plaque, and his 1961 Lincoln Continental. You may be asking yourself, what does JFK do for me? You should be asking yourself, what did JFK do for you? So let's blast off. Almost immediately, when we start walking on the moon, we come across JFK's childhood picture book. On the cover is a picture of him and his mom, Rose Kennedy, who had 9 children, 4 boys and 5 girls. First, there's Joe Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, Ted Kennedy. Then there's Rosemary, Kathleen, Eunice, Jean, and finally Patricia. Rose Kennedy liked to keep close tabs on all of her children. She even kept a wooden box filled with all sorts of things, from a doctor's note to a shoe size that they would have had at the age of 2. JFK got his name from Rose's father, John Francis Fitzgerald. But when he was little, or not just when he was little, when he was always went by Jack. Jack was not a very healthy baby. He had lots of diseases like whooping cough, measles, and chickenpox. When he was 3, he came down with a really serious case of scarlet fever, which is highly contagious and life-threatening. He was unhealthy throughout his whole life, and National Institutes of Health claim that he had Addison's disease and hypothyroidism. Joe Kennedy Sr. was his father, and he always wanted to become a successful politician, businessman, and Harvard student. When he was little, he used to say that, "I want to make $1 million by the time I turn 35. His grandparents did a better job, though, of becoming successful, as they were voted the Boston's best politicians. JFK had a really easy childhood and never really had to worry about food, shelter, or even if he wanted a new toy. Nannies and housekeepers helped Rose keep the house clean and ready. They went to Cape Cod a lot. They had a house there where they sailed, swam, and played football. Joe Kennedy Sr. liked to make sure that they were competitive and played sports. He often said, "When the going gets tough, the tough gets going." JFK went to Choate School for Boys, where he was pretty popular and played all kinds of sports like tennis, football, and swimming. He read lots of books and even had a subscription to the New York Times newspaper. His schoolmaster always said that he had a clear individualistic mind. He went to Harvard in 1936, where he played football until he slipped a disc, and he never ended up recovering from that. He was a pretty average student and never really excelled until 1937, when his father became ambassador in Britain for the U.S. When he was inspired to write his book, Why England Slept, which was about how the U.S. influenced the war with Germany. JFK graduated in 1940 from Harvard, and then joined the Navy with his brother Joe Kennedy Jr. They were lieutenants. His brother became a lieutenant in the Pacific, and Kennedy had a PT-109 cruiser. Then we come across his presidential plaque. For some reason, what's load? And this Kennedy always had the hope for success and encouraged lots of change for America. He established the Peace Corps, and it helped America become strong. And he also established the Space Force. Kennedy was inaugurated in 1960 as the U.S. president. And then there were he asked for U.S. soldiers to invade Cuba, which is called the Bay of Pigs crisis. It didn't work. He wanted to overthrow Fidel Castro. Then he also did a speech in Berlin to put up a wall against Russia. And then they planted missiles in Cuba, which is called the Cuban Missile Crisis. Then he established a national quarantine, or not a national quarantine, just for America. And then he helped peace. In the distance, you can hear the engine of a 1961 Lincoln Continental, which is very emotional for some people that lived long enough to see the day. In 1963, November 22nd, JFK was shot and killed in Dallas, Texas. He was driving a campaign parade and waving to people down Dallas. Then a single shot came from the school book depository. The first shot was a miss, and then the second shot hit him, and he fell into Jackie Kennedy's lap. And then Kennedy can be seen jumping on the back of the car towards her Secret Service agent Clint Hill. They rushed to Parkland Hospital, where he was finally pronounced dead at 1:03 p.m. They were never able to identify who killed him, but the United States government blamed it on Lee Harvey Oswald, who was found at the school book depository at the same time that Kennedy was shot. A few days later, when he was about to go to trial, a club owner, Jack Ruby, ended up shooting Lee Harvey Oswald before trial could happen. So it's still a mystery to this day. Forgive your enemies, but never forget their names. So we bring all of this stuff back to Arlington National Cemetery so JFK can finally rest at peace. And now you can watch as JFK Jr. finally salutes JFK with the correct hand, which is something he worked on forever. Now we looked at JFK's childhood picture book, his presidential plaque, and his 1961 Lincoln Continental. As we express our gratitude, we must never forget that the highest appreciation is not to utter words, but to live by them. That's it.
Got it. Thank you, Haley. A lot of great content there. All right, guys.